Well, I'm trying to stream to YouTube here. I'm not sure whether it's going to work or not. Very short. I have some studying I have to do on Russiagate and a couple other things. However, I need to speak on a few things here real quick. They really do need to have officers in these cities engage in counter surveillance lifestyle. Generally, it's very difficult. I can't see how any police department can protect its officers with the deep state and the private sector operating together. You've seen complaints come in that were fishy. A lot of times that's constructed by other officers and agents, intelligence officers, private sector people. If an officer or an agent or intelligence officer or police officer or whatever officer or agent is engaged in that activity, it doesn't mean that that's where it started, even if there is some sort of dispute in the office or in the community. Private sector, foreign intelligence. The deep state is a criminal enterprise that you can't see. And these are hit contracts, although the officer can receive that via spycraft manipulation or direct spycraft messaging. So again, in psychological warfare, if they want to ruin somebody, they have techniques they use. What's happening in some of the cases, FBI is coming into a case, or a police department is coming into a case after the psychological warfare. So that's generally what they'll do. The first few years are generally very quiet. They're just beginning to set it up. I mean, they could do it very quick, but generally if you're a low-level person, it'll take them a few years to get it set up. They have to get your wife on the outs, you and the wife on the outs, financial issues. They're trying to get me to buy all sorts of stuff. I know they did it to Loomer, because they're just constantly moving this thing that you have to purchase stuff. They'll give you credit and everything because they want to crash it. So there's a lot going on. And that could be going on also. They could be setting up the assassinations, and that would kill the credit system. That would kill our finances, our economy, if they were using credit negatively. Now, if they're using it, like I said, I could buy things and put the payments off, and I could refinance my credit cards even if I wanted to with interest rates. If they do that, that's not a problem. You're allowed to make money, but you're not allowed to play a game with that money. So what is a moneylender? Why is a moneylender evil? I think there's a lot of things lost in the Bible because the moneylender would play games. And then Jesus even says the forgiveness of money, and then you don't forgive somebody money when you get forgiven money. So the whole idea is that appropriate mindset. You don't have to be Jesus. You don't have to be Christ-like. You don't have to be anybody. But there is a limit as to what God accepts in creation against people creation. Because I don't want to say his people, because a lot of people don't understand the innocent concept. They don't have the ability to be with God in a way that others do. So again, that is a failure of mind and spiritual projection on the innocent person and or people. I'm trying to remember what else I wanted to put out there. So this guy, Daniel, supposedly raped. And I say it like that because enough people have said it's kind of weird. And I generally don't, I don't say that. You commit a sex crime, and I believe that's it for the person. But again, we have a lot of things going on around people committing sex crimes. And when it's a police officer, it's a higher level of possibility. And why do I say that? It seems a little riskier to do it, but yet that's the kind of people that are doing it. So they're, by default, in communities of people that have psychological warfare and CIA, psychological warfare and KGB, psychological warfare and Chinese secret police, psychological warfare techniques. Why do I say that? As I said before, it's not all legitimate CIA stuff they're using. So we could have people in CIA, people in FBI using actually KGB and Chinese secret police methods where we don't even authorize our CIA to do it. So he could have been oscillated and sexualized. Now, it's very difficult under that type of pressure, under that type of torture, because remember, he's being wired that he has to do something additional to feel okay. Again, the Momo game kind of gave you a view into that. And in the end, they try to get people to commit suicide. And that may have been their goal in the end. Remember, the sexual trigger is very important for people that torture. We saw that in Abu Ghraib that came up over there. It's come up many places where they won't talk about it. So again, let's not get into this Muslim battle, because if we look at 9/11 and we don't learn from 9/11, then we get nowhere. Yes, there were Islamic people, and I was very angry because God had instructed me when I woke up that people were cursing Islamic people to be terrorists, and some of those people were in the church. So God sent me out on a mission to heal ethnic people so their minds would not be moved to criminal activity. Now, back up a bit. Those people in government, they know that. To them, that's fair game. They're a Christian, quote unquote, and they're a Muslim. And there's this battle they get to play, magic wars. But it also includes psychological warfare to force them to crime or to turn a blind eye to it so that they will act out. And they go, oh, see over there? It's the same thing as that Leonard Orr, fire marshal, was an arsonist. So they're creating crime. But yet it's gotten to the point, see, that's where it begins, where they create crime just to feel good about being a law enforcement person. Then they begin targeting people with those programs and those activities. And then the criminals aren't even looked at anymore. They're looking to make criminals out of the people they obsess over. So, okay, here's the important part of what I wanted to speak about. I had to get them down far enough so I could speak about this. They were in my mind, so God set me on a certain journey of speech. Because I just got my mind back to what I wanted to say. So what they do, if they're going to investigate a certain criminal activity and want you to look guilty based upon FBI psychology, they will use CIA, KGB, Chinese secret police, Waffen-SS, Soviet communism technology to wire information about a crime that will make you look guilty to that torture, to that psychological warfare. So while they're presenting this information and sexualizing you, and they're sexualizing me, remember Agent Love. Now, I don't agree with two sides being evil, okay? I don't play team sports in government. However, Agent Love, if you look, I can't find it right now, but Yardbird, the Luna collection there, and who knows, they may have, hacked it and pulled it out. But it said Agent Love, and for the life of me, I can't remember who she is. Or he is. I can't remember if it's he or she. Accused Jonathan Luda's friend of putting her sex out there. Now, I don't know to this day whether she's innocent or complicit, but she does do that. And that may have been directed at what happened to me. Because I was involved in something there. I could never figure it out. I spent my whole time there trying to figure it out. To me, the FBI was investigating me, and one day they would go away. I have all these strange people trying to sexualize me, trying to find a woman that I could settle down with one day, finally get a date with one. And they psychologically operate her mind, and I know we were drugged. I know she went through the same thing as I did because she reacted the same way to a certain situation or not just one, multiple situations that we happened to be together where it triggered. So I said, okay, they're doing her. But it was so early on, I didn't have any, I wasn't even aware yet. I maybe had the word seer going off in my brain, starting to go off in my brain. I could hear a voice going, seer, seer. As I was passing seers, a voice was going, seer, seer. I'm like, what? That's in the Bible. But again, my mind didn't even register a voice at that point. But I know it was a voice. So again, that was happening and is happening. Now, people are human. I accept error, but we're not there. We're in criminal activity. We're in criminal activity so heinous, it rivals the Soviet Union Communist Party. So again, I am healing. They're looking for the same reactions that they put in that early wiring that they did. People were sexualizing me in the courthouse. I tried to play it as best as I could and move an investigation forward, and eventually I figured nothing because my brain was drugged. They eventually drugged me. And at that point, I couldn't laugh at it anymore because I was drugged. You can't. And then what they're doing there is wiring you to have a reaction. So forever they could bring up whatever it was and then say, "Yes, it's the crime." But of course, they use psychological manipulation. You just can't. You're all like the most ignorant people in the world to me, but I would be too if I didn't go through it. Because it's colorless to you. You don't understand what I'm saying. Although you can maybe kind of intellectualize a little bit, you can't really know what I'm saying. You don't understand how intense it is. You know what it's like? That movie, what was that movie? With Dennis Hoffman. Was it Marathon Man? Where they drill into his tooth and touch the nerve to torture him? That's what it is. That's the sensation when they trigger it. And they know it. They're not confused. They know what they're doing. They know they're criminals. They know they're spies taking over the country, but they don't call themselves that. They're heroes taking over the country because it's the psychology of torture. But again, Agent Love may be a little confused as how it's done in the FBI, if that person's still there, because that's what they do. They throw their sexuality around. It's in the Bible. You can read about them. But yet, we have sex cults that we prosecute, don't we? Or maybe that's just another FBI token case. They never would have been arrested if they didn't need a token case. So again, they're not focusing on the criminals. They're focusing on psychological warfare and causing criminals other places. I brought up Sheriff Joe's case. It made no sense. Sheriff Joe not investigating illegal immigrant sex crimes? Sheriff Joe should be actually being berated for investigating it too much. Because that's where he was. He figured that was the biggest threat for his community. Illegal immigrant crime appeared to be the thing that was harming his community the most. And of course, if you study the time that Sheriff Joe was sheriff in Phoenix, Maricopa County, the entire county, if you studied home invasions and you studied carjacking and forced rape, you would find that should have been a focus. Or a focus. It was a focused, unfocused. So, in fact, Sheriff Joe was not off base. He was just a little overzealous. But why did it fail? Why couldn't he get where he needed to get to? Because people in his sheriff's department were working for the deep state and undermining his ability to stay on an even keel and get somewhere. He was set up. Deep state, shadow government, criminal enterprise set up. There's no way Sheriff Joe would not want them to. They were too busy doing deep state shadow government criminal enterprise. The sexual projections and homosexualizing I received in Tempe, Arizona was more intense than it was in New Mexico. So God apparently moved me back to New Mexico for that reason. And it did include law enforcement officers. So again, we have some strange stuff that happened to officers within Maricopa County, especially the sheriff's office there. It was triggered by deep state. To include possibly the guy that was it suicide or a standoff with other officers? I'm trying to remember Coleman, Officer Coleman. That was triggered by a deep state attack on that Facebook alien UFO guy because he was implicating government in some things. And really, they didn't have to bother him because he was a UFO guy. Only so many people would take him serious until you drove him crazy and he shot a police officer. See, they're so paranoid. They can't even let some guy that speaks about UFOs all day that says, well, I think the government's doing this. So what happened is like 15% of what this guy was saying was true. So they wanted to take him out. So they drove him crazy. He's in a van. Coleman goes up to the door. He's whacked out from the MK Ultra Project Artichoke program, and he shoots Coleman. And of course, he shot the couple also. So again, that's what's going on. So Sheriff Joe did the best he could based upon what was going on in his community at the hands of the deep state shadow government criminal enterprise. So I was in Sheriff Joe's community while they weren't investigating those crimes, and people were attempting to sexualize me into those crimes. I was there the same time period that Sheriff Joe's people were not investigating sex crimes. And they tried to sexualize me into sex crimes. So they were busy